Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, this is going to be the Zero to Hero episode on the Spark Charge Spellblade. So, this build is a lot more experimental than a lot of the other builds I would play normally, and that's because of the fact that Spellblade is a very, I don't know, boring mastery. Not boring in the way of like playing it, but boring in the way of build crafting because there's really not that many different ways you can play a Spellblade, but this is definitely one of them. So I wanted to try playing with Spark Charges, but I wanted to play it a little bit differently than normal. So instead of playing with like Mana Strike and stuff like that, I wanted to try Shatter Strike. But I also wanted to try some other tech that I found as well. So if you don't know, on YouTube, there's a dude whose name is Chunky Papa. He decided to try to play with Spark Charge on melee hit idols with Spellblade, and on top of that with Flame Reave with the pull node on cooldown. And it's a really cool interaction where it'll pull the enemies all together, and then the spark charges will go off, and it will like all the spark charges will overlap, and you end up with a really good clear this way. Now, of course, that's good enough, but that's not good enough for single target, so we decided to do kind of like a little bit of a swap. So for single target, we swap out Flame Reave for Shatter Strike, and that seems to work for the most part. There's a few problems here and there with the build. Specifically, the one I will note is we end up being a little bit squishier than I would like to be on no gear. That is because of the fact that most of Spellblade's defenses come from using a melee attack and hitting things. But if we're just using one melee attack, i.e. the Flame Reave, and then moving on, we're not necessarily generating that much ward from that, which means we're not as defensive while we're clearing. So it ends up making it so that later on in higher corruptions, we're not as tanky as we'd like to be. Now, this would be immediately fixed if we were running something like Vessel of Strife or something, but on no gear, it is a problem. So that is something I will note is this build was definitely squishier later on. Now, it's funny because on bosses, we're really, really, really tanky. We can just face tank everything. That's because of Shatter Strike and its interactions with Spellblade, and you can run a chance to gain ward on melee hit idols. So the tankiness is only a problem while clearing, which is very awkward, as normally it would be the other way around, but Shatter Strike is a pretty good skill, turns out. Yeah, the idea, we use Flame Reave, pull in enemies, apply Spark Charge, they explode, then we use Shatter Strike on single target to apply a bunch of Spark Charges at once, and overall, that seems to work. I really liked the build, and for a day one progress, it was very good, other than the fact that it was a little bit squishier than I would like to be. Also, as well, I focused a lot of my gearing into trying to get a little bit tankier for my monolith progression and stuff like that. So I ended up with significantly less damage than I started with, mainly because I cut a bunch of items in the middle to try to just build up my HP a little bit higher to make my ward on Silver Rune actually give me a decent amount of ward, so I didn't immediately die while on monoliths. Because remember, Spellblades have this weird thing where they need to be hitting things with melee attacks to actually generate a ward. So I had to fix that, and we did. Now, other things I'm thinking of about the build. So we thought that the Spark Charge idols and the Spark Charge affix on your helmet was a lot rarer than we originally thought. Like here, I managed to get a full set of Spark Charge idols by the end of 300 corruption. Like, I got them very quickly. It was not that big of a deal. It was not that big of a problem. Like, and of course, before that, we could just play Mana Strike, right? And that felt fine. So you can pretty much just play Mana Strike with Spark Charges and stuff like that, and then move into the Flame Reave and Shatter Strike thing, right? And that's cool. Another thing as well you need to know is how to skill queue. So on my bar, you can see that on the left of my bar, Shatter Strike, it's actually attacking and being the one that like is priority to attack. And the skill on my right, Mana Strike, will only go off if I can't do my attack on the left. So there, you'll see me doing a bunch of Shatter Strikes, running out of mana. Mana Strike will go off a few times, give me a bunch of mana since we're out of mana. And then, of course, as well, Shatter Strike will go off again. Doing that allows you to maintain a constant stream of Shatter Strikes on single target, and it makes it just feel that much better. So that's important. Another thing to note, you cannot swap into Flame Reave effectively until you get the ring, the what is it called? The flame reeve ring, the one that like makes it go in a circle, because it's too much points to try to go for the extra range on flame reeve while also going for the pull, while also going for the circular AoE. So you have to make a decision. And I made the decision that it's not worth swapping into flame reeve pull circle stuff until you have the ring. So you need the ring before you do that. Also, as well, you also need the offhand eventually. So all of your runes of ascendant should first go towards offhands to try to get the offhand, like the the spark charge offhand, and then you should swap into flame reeve and stuff like that, like into flame reeve ring and stuff like that. So that's what you should do. Now, if you haven't already, I would heavily suggest leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel, as that is the best way of currently supporting me. But with all that being said, let's go in game. Character selector again. This time it's going to be a Spellblade. I asked my Twitch chat for recommendations for names, and they decided to go Spark on my blade. So, by the way, I do stream on Twitch, and if you want to like interact with me while I'm doing the Zero to Hero series and playing on Epoch, I'd heavily suggest checking out the link in the description or going to dreadful__ on twitch.com. Now, we're going to be leveling as Glacier and just Glacier until we can swap into Mana Strike, mainly because Mana Strike actually you can level with. I just did it a little bit wrong in my opinion. And of course, killing Respec's Orion while also trying to, utilize Mana Strike here. So here I actually spec'd into Mana Strike first to try to go for the Spark Charge nodes first. I think that this is a mistake. You should go for the Lightning node, the node that causes lightning to strike enemies when you hit them with Mana Strike. I would go for that first because you get the full power of that node way quicker than you get the full power of the Spark Charges, in my opinion. So I would definitely do that. As you can see here, we're still actually playing with Mana Strike now that we're no longer playing with Glacier. It's a little cringy, I will say. It definitely did not feel good, but I just went with it because why not? But I would definitely go with the Lightning Strike node first. That was my biggest mistake here, in my opinion. We also spec'd into Frostclaw early on because, we're starting to get all of our spell procs. Yeah, once I actually get the lightning on hit, as you can see here, the clear feels a lot better in general, and the damage just feels better. Right here, like it looks way better than it did before. Like it feels way better. Early on, you want to be focusing on getting like a scepter or something with as much attack speed as humanly possible to make the build feel a lot better, in my opinion. That's definitely something you should be aiming for. Here we are, end of Act 2. As you can see, we do decent damage so far. Not like the best damage ever, but it is categorically damage. So, this very much kind of meh experience until a little bit later, to be honest. Yeah, and in my opinion, unfortunately, I would heavily suggest not leveling this way. I would just suggest leveling with Glacier. Now, if you don't know, the release trailer for Last Epoch 1.2 did come out before me finishing this video, so you can re-specialize masteries. And unfortunately, because of the way that Spellblade is made and how all of the power is at the end of the tree and nothing is at the beginning of the tree, it's much better to go with Glacier and then swap into this build way later when you have the offhand, when you have the ring. Like pretty much like I would just play Glacier until you had access to all the uniques, in my opinion. Like unfortunately, that is the truth. I don't like saying it, but it is. Now, here is the end of Act 3. One cool little trick you can do is you can actually make them sit right next to each other so that the spark charges overlap, and of course, the frost claws overlap too. As you can see, we're doing a very large amount of hits because we finally spec'd our frost claw into doing, all the damage, right? And actually hitting 5 times in a row like that. So overall, definitely feels a lot better when it's done this way here. Definitely you want to group them up and try to kill them both at the same time. As you can see, our ward generation is going up immensely as well, which is great. Now here's our first Monolith of Fate. Here we did not, we tried to spec into Flame Reeve early, and it was like, okay, it wasn't the best, but why not, right? Enchant Weapon definitely is superior early on than Flame Reeve for sure for this setup. Here, as you can see, we're kind of like clearing, we don't feel the best, but we're not struggling by any means, right? Like the tankiness that Spellblade gets is actually very front loaded in the first few nodes in general in the mastery. So you end up getting just a lot of ward in general whenever you're just doing anything as a Spellblade, which is cool. And as you can see here, like we do okay damage. It's not the greatest damage, but we do okay damage. The clear is more annoying than the damage, in my opinion, but like, you get what you get when you try to play a suboptimal playstyle early on, right? Now here's our A-bomb kill. It's nothing too fancy. This is when we do actually get the offhand for the spark charge stuff, so we have significantly more damage than you would have at this point. I just want to let you know the spark charge relic is really strong, turns out. So just lots and lots of damage, but not that fast. Now here is our first monolith alongside with the spark charge relic. As you can see, it looks way better. If you don't end up with the spark charge relic this early, don't worry. The build isn't terrible. It's just not as effective. One thing I will note is I just don't suggest leveling this way. I suggest just leveling with the bitch basic like glacier leveling setup, to be honest with you. Like it sucks to say, but like I really don't think that this leveling's any good. Like I think you are better off just going with glacier and stuff like that until you feel like as though you're ready to swap into the spark charge stuff, and that would be when you get the offhand catalyst, and I wouldn't swap until then, in my opinion. Here's our Rye. It's not that quick. Like I said, if you don't have the Spark Charge Relic by this point, like it's okay if your damage would be lower. I suggest just not leveling this way. After like perusing the footage and like rewatching the character through and stuff like that, I really don't suggest leveling this way. I suggest just playing with whatever else and then specking into Spark Charges later, unfortunately. Now, this is the first mono that I have the Flame Reeve ring. As you can see, we actually have it now, and it feels glorious. Even with the small percentage chance of spark charge chance that I have, it feels great. So the idea is we pull them into the circle, and then we use Mana Strike to implode them pretty much. It feels pretty good, even at this point of the character, even without percent chance to spark charge on hit, melee hit as well from gear and all that. This feels pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. Like as soon as you get everything set up in terms of the ring and the offhand, you go from like 0 to hero. Ha ha ha. But yeah, I would definitely suggest not playing this version of the character until you get both the offhand and the ring, because otherwise it just feels kind of meh, you know? Now we're still planning on swapping this Shatter Strike for single target later, but that's not until later. Now here's our Lagan. It took a little while, but you're kind of used to it at this point. Now, we did get to Respec finally after getting some Spark Charge on melee hit. As you can see here, lots and lots of Spark Charges, even with a very low amount of investment, and also as well, very large amounts of ward with also very low amounts of investment. I really do think once you get the relic, the offhand and the ring, this build starts to pop off, but until that point, it's not like the best thing ever. But at the same time, you don't really need the best things to play through the game right now. I would say though that like I said, playing Glacier up until this point is much better. But if you do want to try it this way, I would definitely try it this way. It's just not as good because like you could probably get unlucky and not get the Spark Charge relic till way later. So I just wouldn't suggest leveling this way. It's crazy, but like I wouldn't. I got supremely lucky, I think. Now, a good tip here is for Spirits of Fire. If you walk over to the left side, it ends up making it much better for Shatter Strike because you can hit all of the spirits, all the shamans at the same time. Here, that's good enough. As you can see, that plus the overlap of the Shatter Strikes and, of course, the Spark Chargers just ends up feeling really good, and we end up killing them very, very fast. So if you do end up getting lucky enough to get your stuff early on, it feels great. Like, you definitely just need the offhand mainly. Now, here's our Herot. Herot is really easy in the campaign in comparison to his much older brother, Herot in Corruption. That's mainly because he's just built like a wet tissue. He just has literally no HP whatsoever in comparison to other bosses. Now, here's a quick 90 monolith to give you an idea of what the Flame Reeve gameplay currently looks like. Also, as well, we did respec Mana Strike into giving way more mana than before. It was our damage output until now. Now it is not our damage output. Now we just use it for mainly mana. We did grab the Spark Charge nodes inside Mana Strike though still, just so that, you know, if we need to actually kill something while we're leveling. Because remember, we're changing our bar where we're using Flame Reave while we're clearing, and then we swap into Shatter Strike for single target. This was the original concept of the build. I think it's kind of flawed, mainly in terms of not having access to Shatter Strike, mainly because of the fact that Shatter Strike gives you a bajillion ward, which ends up giving you a lot of defenses, and you don't get that much clear out of Flame Reef, although you do later on in higher corruptions because things survive longer and the overlaps get better. So definitely like something that you would want to have later on, but this early on, it's not like amazing, but it does feel really good to do it. Now here's our first Harbinger. As you can see, lots and lots of Shatter Strikes, lots and lots of Spark Charge procs. It actually ends up feeling pretty good at this point. Just lots and lots of little Spark Charge procs. Very wonderful. As you can see, just zooming through the HP, lots of ward. Like overall, just feels really good in general. Just the ward this early, the spark, like it just kind of culminates into a pretty good bossing experience all the way through, in my opinion. The moment you put on Shatter Strike, your bossing is solved. Now, just to give you an idea of what our DPS looks like right now, lots and lots of spark charges, plenty of damage alongside utilizing the offhand here. Not like the most damage ever, but it's good enough, especially with that ward count, as you can see, especially with that ward count. Also, the time-honored tradition of beating Durla in the face so that we can get access to COF. Now, here's our first empowered mono. Early on, my ward doesn't even feel that bad. The only time my ward started feeling quote-unquote bad was when I was getting up to like 250 to 300 corruption, and I was dealing with like Wingari Axemen and poison mobs every monolith. That was around when I started feeling bad. And this was because of a play style as well, like a play style problem. The biggest problem that I was having was when you would pull enemies towards you, turns out melee enemies can hit you. And if you're not immediately deleting them, because my damage wasn't obviously the best at this point, because it's literally day one, right? This would mean that they would have chances to actually hit you. This didn't matter at the lower corruptions, but as I pushed up higher and higher and higher, it started being more and more relevant. So that was like mainly why I started feeling squishy later on, while now I don't feel as squishy, right? Here we go. Hardest part of the run here, Harbinger of Chaos. Not even a hard thing whatsoever. Like, look, like, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm pretty much face tanking them for the most part, other than dodging the obvious things, right? As you can see, lots and lots of DPS at this point alongside the offhand relic. Like, oh, I mean, offhand. It feels really good. Like, it felt really good to just face tank the Harbinger of Chaos at this time. Because remember, this is like maybe 6 to 7 hours into the character, something like that, right? So just not giving a shit about it just felt great. I didn't have like an amazing amount of spark charge chance at this point either. I had like one spark charge idle, I think, or maybe one or two. Thank you, Donnie89, for the follow, by the way. But yeah, it's like maybe 1 to 2. As you can see here, the Harbinger actually leaves the arena, and I'm trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. But I realized she's down there. Look at that. And she finally jumps back up. They really do have to like work on this a little bit more. It wouldn't be Lagan if it wasn't bugged, or am I right, boys? It would not be Lagan. But as you can see, we kill her quickly and we're good to go. And in my ever long crusade to make you understand how crazy the boss HP has gotten, here is an Orbis and how quickly we kill an Orbis. I forgot to swap back to Shatter Strike for this, which is kind of funny. As you can see, we kill him significantly faster than we kill the Harbinger because, you know, Orbises are like way squishier in comparison. We have killed him way faster, but this one is a little bit scarier because of those stupid Shaper Balls. But the moment that the Shaper Balls are gone, like we take the dub against this Orbis here. Here, I'm trying to slam my 2 LP Fragment of the Enigma I dropped here with almost perfect stats, alongside a shitty relic that I found on the ground that I crafted on. Normally, if I drop something like this, I would wait way longer to slam it, but this was a 0 to hero series. This character is getting deleted, so I said, fuck it, who cares? But as you can see here, trying to slam it, And we get about 50% of the way. We get the spell critical strike chance, which is fine. That's good enough for now. Now here we have the third Harbinger. He's the anti-melee one, which doesn't even feel that bad this time. As long as you kite him out of the green circle and not just sit in the green circle all day, you'll do just fine against this guy. Like he doesn't do that much damage as long as you do him as like your second Harbinger and stuff like that. Because we're just that tanky. Like we just face tank everything. Like it feels great. Shatter Strike feels great in general. Now here's our second Oribus. This time is a poison one, so pretty easy to dodge. As you can see, I'm just sitting there wailing at him with Shatter Strike. I literally don't have to care about anything other than specifically the meteor being thrown on my face, and obviously very quick. Now here's a quick clip of my clear at 170 corruption. The clear itself didn't feel that bad later on. As you can see, the spark charges just feel great to interact with. I wish I had just a little bit more damage when I was at the end of the, road at like 300 corruption, but that's something that like blessings and stuff like that could solve. That's something that like a little bit better gear. Remember, I'm usually not spending favor on any of these runs. I could have easily have spent favor to get like a better items in general, like better idols. I could have spent it to get better like a better weapon, for instance, right? Stuff like that. But I just didn't feel like doing it because it's just not really worth it per se. Like it's better just to save up all your like your prophecy juice and use it later if you're in COF. And for this series, it's way more realistic for me to not use my prophecy juice because you probably shouldn't be using it until way later, in my opinion, because like when you actually feel like as though you need an item. Another Oribus. I'm just trying to push up my corruption as quickly as possible so that, we get more stability per mono, and that means we get to bosses faster. I'm finally starting to refine this process of getting higher in corruption. It feels great. So I accidentally skipped the fourth Harbinger. Funnily enough, I did not record it for some reason. I did stream it, so I guess that counts, but I didn't end up recording it, which was kind of funny. I was supposed to go and get like a clip of it and bring it here, but like, I'll be honest, that fight was really easy, and so is this one. As you can see, like Shatter Strike really is just like freaking like dumping its nuts all over these guys. The only reason that I say that this isn't like that good is because there is, like I said, a chance that you don't end up with specifically an offhand relic, which would suck a lot at this point. So definitely like a very questionable way to league start, but if you're determined enough. Here's our fourth Oribus. As you can see, he has a little bit of chonk on him this time, but we still take the dub on him. Like, whenever he's not doing something just absurd, it's fine. As you can see here, I'm getting a little sketched out by all of the little Shaper Seeker mines and stuff like that. So I'm going to like go and pop them. You just have to like kind of like maneuver around them. You get better at it with time. As you can see here, we take the dub on the Oribus. Now here's some 272 corruption footage. This is where you'll start to notice I'm a little bit squishier than I would like to be. This is about where I kind of realized that I needed to swap out a little bit of gear and go for a little bit more HP gear, mainly because we just needed more EHP while in monoliths. For bossing, we didn't need it at all, but for monoliths, like we severely needed it. Like it was a very, very important. So definitely make sure that you're trying to play hybrid instead. I keep making this mistake where I think the ward is going to save me, but I keep realizing that like the ward isn't that strong early on. So you definitely want to make sure that you're trying to go hybrid here. It's way better, especially because of the silver rune and stuff like that. The like reactive ward feels way better that way. Now we have now just started the boss rush. So here is the Harbinger of Pride. There you go. At this point, we're good to go. There's another quick Oribus as well. Another quick Harbinger as well. Harbinger Defilement here. Remember, at this point, the character, I don't invest that much into my gear. I just simply run from point A to point B to try to get as quickly as possible to your 10 out of 10 Harbingers because, I have other stuff to do. I don't have all day to spend playing, right? Obviously. We have the 8th Harbinger. I remember this one giving me a little bit more difficult. Not the Harbinger himself, but Hirot, mainly because he kept running into the wall and then like juking me into the winter area, and it sucked, but here he goes. Now here's our Harbinger Defilement. For pretty much the entirety of the Harbinger Defilement fight, I just kind of just sat on him. I did move him whenever he would put the necrotic dot thing on me, mainly just because like I felt as though like I might have died from it, but I was like, whatever. But other than that, this fight was very safe. Like he's not a hard harbinger at all in comparison to the others. But yeah, there you go, another harbinger down. All right, we're on the 10th Harbinger. This means it's recap time. So I would say the clear is okay. It's actually better than I thought it would be. It feels good. It's just, like I said, due to the tankiness while clearing being a little bit lower due to the fact that we don't have access to something like, let's say, Vessel of Strife currently. Because of that, it just didn't feel as good as I like it. But when you're on your bosses, your tankiness felt amazing. But when you're clearing, your tankiness didn't feel that good. So just simply swapping into a Vessel of Strife setup would immediately fix that, right? So cool. Tankiness isn't as good. The clear is pretty good once you fix that little issue in the details there. The tankiness on bosses feels like S. Like it just felt like I could just face tank the whole fucking time. It was great. Shatter Strike is insane, right? And then after that as well, for the single target DPS, it wasn't as high as I would like it to be, which is kind of funny. Especially considering I had like 100 intelligence at this time. I don't know how I feel about it. I was told Shatter Strike spark charges do a little bit more damage in this, but maybe like, it was inaccurate or something like that. Or of course, I just don't have any gear considering it's like maybe 10 hours or something into the character. So that could probably be what the problem is, from day one. This is definitely a more gear intensive character, in my opinion. So definitely could be that, right? Totally not that. It's just kind of funny because I'm just so used to playing other characters not from day one experience. Like this is completely new to me in general. Like I've done it 14 times in a row, but it still feels new to me every time. But I'm just like, wow, I wish I had a little bit more damage. What's going on? I'm like, I look at my gear. Oh, it's because it's floor trash. It's just kind of funny. But yeah, here's the Harbinger of Destruction. Not a hard boss fight whatsoever. Simple dub. All right, so here we are in game with the character. Let's go over it in detail. So for our first setup here, we have Shatter Strike. Shatter Strike is just mainly being used as a vehicle to apply as many spark charges as possible. So we have stuff like this, 16% chance to apply spark charge on hit, 19% chance and a 17% chance, alongside with the 20% chance on our helmet, and of course the 11% chance on our fragment of the Enigma. So that means that we apply a lot of spark charges on our melee hits. Now, of course, each Shatter Strike we do does 2 attacks, and then we also grab into Whiteout to do 2 recasts of it. We are also running Ice Blink because we do not have a wand or two-handed weapon equipped. We have a dagger equipped, meaning that we can just simply spam the ever-living fuck out of Shatter Strikes. Also as well here, lots of area so that the overlaps on single target are easier, and mana efficiency to make it feel better. That's pretty much it for Shatter Strike. Now, for Flame Reef mainly, we are utilizing a Sun Wreath here, so keep that in mind as we talk about this. We are going to be grabbing Flame Caller and Infernal Calling so that we return everything near us so that we can explode them with Spark Charges. And of course, we have all the Spark Charge and melee hit, which will apply twice because of Flame Caller, since it attacks twice, right? That will be 2. We also grab the cooldown recovery speed, so it's faster to do this. We do want to eventually spam some cooldown recovery speed on gear as well. That'll also make our enchant weapon feel better. Then, of course, we go for versatility and Rhythm of Fire so that our Flame Reeve hits a bigger screen, right? And we also get the stacks on Mana Strike. So as we are walking around using Mana Strike on our clear with Flame Reeve, right, we can actually, clear pretty easily thanks to that. Also as well, we grab the Frenzy Chance just to make us attack faster. And that's pretty much it for Flame Reef. Nothing too crazy. Now, of course, here, Enchant Weapon, stereotypical setup here, nothing too crazy, just attack speed, duration, reduced mana cost, and Icicles. Icicles just have more chance because every single hit that we apply has a chance to apply Spark Charge, so we definitely want as many hits as humanly possible. Also, as well, speaking of that, we have Frostclaw here. Frostclaw on melee attack. On melee hit, this alongside the node inside Spellblade here. The Frostclaw on hit. Those both combined allow Frostclaw to hit a lot. And each time they attack, it's like 5 hits, which is 5 chances to apply Spark Charge at 10% chance, right? Thanks to this node here, 5 hits as well. Feels really good. Then the rest of the tree is just reducing the mana cost on Frostclaw, and also as well turning it in lightning so that it scales with all of our lightning damage. Frostclaw actually does a decent amount of damage thanks to Glamdring. We get a decent amount of flat thanks to our Rune Dagger here. So it's like 60 flat on this instead of just 30. As well, we also get a decent amount of more damage from Cold Star. And that's pretty much it for Frostclaw here. And then for Mana Strike, mainly we went for as much mana as possible here. Mana gained while out of mana, mana like increased mana given. We grabbed the Spark Charge stuff here just for even more Spark Charges on single target. Although I think you can probably get rid of this once you have enough chance to Spark Charge on hit. You can probably get rid of this and go for all the mana on crit and have better mana uptime when you're using your Mana Strike on single target. But for now, this is what I would have done. And of course, as well, we grab Rune Staff. This ends up being like, I think 200% increased damage, which is a lot of increased damage, which feels pretty good. And that's pretty much it for the skills. Let's talk about the passives that are important. Main thing here, since we're playing hybrid, we go for reactive ward, right? Just lots of ward whenever we get hit down to our life pool. Lots of attack and cast speed. Was one as much attack speed as humanly possible. Also, as well, as much intelligence as possible. Here we grab the 5 intelligence for the spell crit. There's a lot of spell crit. It's like 300% increased right now. Rune Master here, 8 points, getting Seer Protection, less damage taken. This will apply to our ward and our HP, so it's good. We're also grabbing Transcendence for that juicy ward per second. We want as much ward per second as possible. Also, as well, it also gives us this decent amount of HP, and since we're hybrid, we like this node. Spellblade here. 8 points here, just more intelligence. Ward Decay Threshold also feels pretty good. Frostclaw on hit, the less damage taken for Arcane Shield and stuff like that. The Stormblade for Spark Charge on hit. On melee attack, lightning melee attacks. That's actually something I just realized. Probably should turn this to a lightning attack. So shh, don't tell anyone, but you should probably grab Rolling Thunder. I'll make sure to fix that. Make sure that's that way. That explains a little bit, but that's fine. Shh. We can't turn Shatter Strike lightning anyway, so it's fine. Attack speed here, ward per second, intelligence here, lots of HP and ward retention here, just to try to make it so that our hybrid actually works. And then, of course, as well, Prodigy for that base crit, helping us almost cap our crit chance. And that's pretty much it for the passive. Let's talk about the gearing. So, mandatory pieces of gear. This, Fragment of the Enigma, any of them feels good. Then other mandatory piece of gear, Sunwreath. If you don't have a Sunwreath, you can just clear it with Shatter Strike and then swap into Sunwreath later. Like mainly just these 2 items, and then everything else is not mandatory. So helmet here, chance to apply Spark Charge on hit, pretty good. Intelligence, then just resistance and HP eventually, probably just HP probably. You probably want to play this hybrid anyways. Amulet here, crit multi, spell crit eventually, resistance, HP, probably on a better amulet. Weapon here we want crit multi, attack speed, mainly exalted attack speed on the Rune Dagger, of course, as well shred, and then probably lightning pen on the suffix. Pretty much that's like what you'd want. Belt here, HP, and eventually lightning percent damage. Ring here, spell damage, intelligence, resistance, HP, like whatever, like crit avoid, whatever you can shove on this ring. Gloves here, you just want exalted attack speed. This could eventually be a pair of Falcon Fists with exalted attack speed slapped on it, as well as intelligence. I do have armor shred on hit, but you should get that on your suffix on your Rune Dagger, and you should be able to run like HP on this or something like that to make yourself feel tankier. Then the boots here, I did end up with a really decent pair of armor boots. We end up with like 40% armor when we're clearing monoliths and stuff like that and killing stuff. Well, that feels good, but you definitely should go for HP instead on this. Then for the boots, for the relic here, just intelligence. I got really lucky. Crit multi, intelligence, like frailty, like resistance or HP or whatever. Then for idols here, you just want to be searching for chance to apply Spark Charge on melee hit. This will allow you to swap into Shatter Strike and stuff like that, as well Flame Breathe. And that's pretty much it for the character, pretty much it for the build. With all that being said, this has been Dread, off to go do something else. Bye.